Hi, I'm Ray Arcade. Welcome to my channel. It's spooky season now, and I want to do a little side quest. As some of you may know, I'm from New Jersey, and if there's anything New Jersey is famous for, besides the Jersey Shore and the Sopranos, it's a little cryptid called the Jersey Devil. So that got me thinking that it would be really fun to throw a bunch of cryptids into this little Halloween bucket, pull 8, and make them face off against each other in a bracket, March Madness style, to see who the best cryptid is. Now, the fight is going to be off of vibes alone, not necessarily which cryptid is the strongest, but more like whichever one I think is the coolest. And my idea of what is cool is extremely nuanced and stupid. So it could be anybody's game. I've got like 20 in here, so I'm gonna pull 8, which would mean we'll have 4 fights. Our first round is the Jersey Devil versus the Wendigo. Our next round is the Loch Ness Monster versus the Bunyip. Bunyip? I've never heard of this one. The Bunyip. Next up, we have the Hopkinsville Goblin versus Bigfoot. And our last matchup is the Mongolian Deathworm versus the Mothman. So here's what's going to happen now that we have our 8 fighters. Me and my little cryptid are going to go do some research on them, come back, and have them brawl each other out on this episode of what I'm calling Cryptid versus Cryptid. Who will win? Let's find out. Well, me and my little cryptid queen are back. We've done some research and we are ready to get started with the first bracket of Cryptid versus Cryptid. Woo! To get into the mood, I'm a moth. Look at that. I'm like a cryptid myself. The Moth Lady. Anyway, so just as a reminder for our first bracket, we're going to have the Jersey Devil versus the Wendigo. And then our second bracket is going to be the Loch Ness Monster versus the Bunyip. And whoever wins from each of those faces each other and they go into the finals. And then our other bracket, I will film after I research those. Then we'll put the finalists together to see who the ultimate cryptid is based off of vibes, whatever I want. So let's start our first round. The Jersey Devil versus the Wendigo. Let's go. So the Jersey Devil is kind of like the unofficial demon of New Jersey. It's like a state mascot. We even have a hockey team called the Jersey Devils. So it's kind of a pretty big part of the zeitgeist. So the Jersey Devil lives in a place called the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. And it's kind of a pretty creepy place. Its floor is sand and the pH is really acidic. So things have a hard time growing there. And the trees are called pitch pine. And they're really scraggly, leggy looking pine trees. And they're ugly. They look a little alien, like a forest you might see on a different planet. But it's huge. The Pine Barrens is huge. And it's just all around unwelcoming looking. So the Jersey Devil is said to have been the 13th child of Mother Leeds. Mother Leeds was not super stoked on having a 13th child. I wonder why. So on a stormy night in 1735 in the Pine Barrens, she yelled, "May it be the devil!" And then she gave birth. And the Jersey Devil was like, "Bet, I am the devil." And he flew out of her kuka up the chimney and just like flew away. He just flew away. He's been flying around the Pine Barrens. So I guess Mother Leeds got what she wanted. She, didn't have to raise that 13th kid, I guess. So the Jersey Devil is said to have a kangaroo-like body, the face of a horse, the head of a dog. It's got horns and wings and a tail. And it's probably the stupidest looking thing I've ever seen. People say that they hear him screaming in the Pine Barrens when they're out there. And basically all the Jersey Devil does is eat people's chickens and get seen sometimes. He's basically a nuisance. That's all he does, is he looks really goofy and he's a nuisance. But we love him. So that's the Jersey Devil. Moving on. The Jersey Devil is facing the Wendigo. The Wendigo is a creature or creatures from Algonquin folklore, and this is around the Great Lakes area into Canada. The Wendigo is described as being really big, like 10 feet tall, skeletal, with skin stretched very thin across it. Its eyes are like hollow and sunken in, and its mouth is bloody and torn. It's gaunt, ashen looking, and it smells of death and decay. There are modern versions of the Wendigo where it actually has a deer skull for a head with antlers. I will say those depictions are like pretty metal and cool looking, but it's not accurate to what the Wendigo is originally described as. But the main thing to take away is that the Wendigo is always hungry. And that's why it's so skinny, because it eats and eats and consumes, but it never gets full. And a lot of times it's depicted as having like a bloody, torn mouth, because it's almost like it's eating its own face with hunger. So before, electricity and the industrialization of America, the Great Lakes and Canada region were like a really harsh place to live. And it was easy to resort to desperate measures, which includes cannibalism. And the Wendigo was used as a cautionary tale against that. I mean, obviously cannibalism is like not super rad. You shouldn't do that. But in the Algonquin culture and across a lot of cultures, there's something more to it other than just being like, hey, don't eat people. They believe it's an affront to human nature to consume another's flesh, because it's like you're consuming a part of them, a part of their spirit, a part of their being, which has unearthly consequences, like becoming damned. So from what I've researched, a Wendigo happens in two different ways. It's either said, and I cannot pin down which one is accurate, but it seems like either or. You either just become a Wendigo when you feast on another person's flesh, or a Wendigo spirit possesses you and then you feast on another person's flesh. But either way, at the end of the day, you become a starving monster who roams the earth eternally, craving flesh. Beyond being a cautionary tale against cannibalism, the Wendigo is also a warning against excessive greed and consumption. So yeah, also don't eat people though. A lot of the Algonquin people value communal living, and probably the worst way to betray communal living is to eat your neighbors. And though the Wendigo is more of a metaphor, some people claim they have seen it and they've heard it stalking around the Great Lakes and Canada woods, letting out an unearthly sounding roar that has shook them to the bones. We've got the Jersey Devil and we've got the Wendigo, and the Wendigo wins. I mean, listen, I love the Jersey Devil, but he's kind of just silly. He's silly, and I love that. I do love that. Actually almost had him win because he is so stupid looking, but, objectively speaking, as objective as I can be in this subjective cryptid versus cryptid, the Wendigo is just cool. And it's also morbid and dark. It has a really nice, rich backstory. So Wendigo wins. The Loch Ness Monster is rumored to be living in a lake in the Scottish Highlands called Loch Ness. She's a marine creature. She is about 25 feet long and at least 4 feet high. And some people think she looks like a plesiosaur, which is an actual amphibious, I think, like dinosaur thing. And then other people think maybe she's a giant eel, because scientists actually tested the waters of Loch Ness, but they did find a lot of eel DNA. So some people think maybe Nessie is a giant fucking eel who sticks her head out of water. But either way, there's been like thousands of sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. And there's even a book in that area that you can write your sighting in if you want to. There's also like a lot of pictures, supposed pictures of her. Some are somewhat convincing and some are just nonsense, but it's fun. The potential first recording of the Loch Ness Monster was 565 AD. There was an Irish abbot named Columba who became a saint, Saint Columba, and he was in the Scottish Highlands. He's walking around Loch Ness, comes upon some wildlings. Their friend, they drag him out of the water, dead. Loch Ness Monster got him, and he's like, I'm a saint. Brings that dude back to life. He's like, I'm bringing you back. But then the Loch Ness Monster comes like out of the water. He banishes her back to her murky lair. He says, get out of here, Loch Ness Monster. Go on, get. Immediately, the wildlings are like, oh my God, praise Jesus, we're believers now. And then they were like, my God is an awesome God. He banishes the Loch Ness Monster. Since then, Nessie has become a big part of the local culture around that area. It's a big tourist attraction. But I think the most appealing thing about Nessie is that she's kind of elusive. She's like a shy girl. She's coy. She's demure. You might catch a glimpse of her. You might get a photo of her, but she's hiding. She's doing her own thing. And I think that's part of her uniqueness is people just don't know. They don't really know her. They want to, though. We want to know you, Nessie, the bunyip. The bunyip is a creature from Australian Aboriginal folklore. He lives in fresh bodies of water, lakes, rivers, mostly swamps. He is really hard to pin down what he looks like. There are several different accounts, and in some he has scales, and other he has fur. He's definitely a marine creature, probably a mammal, but the main takeaway is that most people think he's a demon, and he has gigantic teeth to eat you with. He loves eating people, no matter what. He's a man-eater. The reason for the variety of descriptions of him is probably because the bunyip is an amalgamation of different cultures' folklores, so it varies from culture to culture, but it's an overall idea of the bunyip. The first recording of one was in the 1800s, where some Europeans came and the Aboriginals told them. And I think they were kind of memeing with the Europeans, and the Europeans were like, oh my God, there's a man-eating creature in the swamp. Most likely the bunyip is, again, a cautionary tale, as most mythical monsters are, to frighten children away from the edges of water. Basically, the idea is if you get too close to a swamp, the bunyip's going to come up and eat your children. Because if anything is a good motivator for children, it's fear. Spare the child-eating monster, spoil the child, so to say. Other people think that maybe the bunyip is like the echo of a long-extinct creature called the Diprotodon. I may have butchered the way I said that. I had to Google and push the button on how the lady says it a bunch. Let's do it. Hold on.
Diprotodon.
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 Diprotodon. Hello?
Diprotodon.
Diprotodon. So yeah, some people think that maybe the bunyip is the echoes of the long extinct Diprotodon passed down through culture to culture, generation to generation. Basically, the Diprotodon is like a giant wombat. It's actually pretty goofy looking. It is the size of a horse, but thick. But it was an herbivore, so it wasn't eating people. I think it's cute. And though the bunyip is a folklore, some people say that they have seen him skulking around out there. It could be real. We don't know. So this is a hard one between the Loch Ness Monster and the bunyip. But I think I'm going to pick Nessie because she's really cute. Something about her. I'm drawn in by her. I want to know more. She seems like an adorable little marine creature. We love her. All right, so our first bracket, we've got the Wendigo versus the Loch Ness Monster, and we'll see who will be going to the final matchup. The Wendigo. It's too cool, man. I really appreciate the message of the Wendigo. Also, it sounds like I would shit my pants if I saw that roaming around, and I definitely don't want to be hungry forever. I love food, but I love being full too. So the Wendigo wins. Yay! Me and my little cryptid are back. We've done some additional research to begin the fight. Bracket 1, the Wendigo is the winner. So our matchups for bracket 2 to see who will face against the Wendigo for the ultimate cryptid is Bigfoot versus the Hopkinsville Goblins. And then the Mongolian Deathworm versus the Mothman. And I am once again wearing a moth. This one's got it's a death head. It's a death's head's moth. And again, this is just going off vibes. So whoever wins, wins. Because I think it's cool. First, we have Bigfoot. Bigfoot is, if you excuse the pun, big in the cryptid field. He is the cryptid. He is that bitch. He's the most notorious cryptid, I think he is. He is a tall, bipedal, hairy, ape-like creature with a powerful build, big hands, big feet. He's like 7 to 10 feet tall, depending on who you ask. He's walking around. He's got an ugly Neanderthal type head, but apparently he's pretty intelligent and elusive. Bigfoot is most commonly associated with living in the Pacific Northwest. Think British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, thick, dense green forest, good place for weird creatures to hide and occasionally be spotted. That's where Bigfoot lives. Bigfoot, with the capital B, did not get popular until the 19th century, but some people think it might be a interpreted version of the First Nations Saskats is what they would call it, and that is angelicized into Sasquatch. And the Sasquatch is a giant, hairy man of indigenous lore, and people think that maybe Bigfoot has been extrapolated from the idea of a Sasquatch. While Bigfoot is synonymous with the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of different cultures that have a hairy type man, wild man in their lore all over the United States, and that includes New York, Pennsylvania, down to Mississippi, California, the Southwest, just a whole expanse of the United States. Oh, Chanel's back. And the question is, if all of these different cultures who wouldn't have been able to communicate with each other have a very similar through line of a wild, hairy man, does that mean that there is such a thing as Bigfoot? So there are a lot of people who critique Bigfoot enthusiasts who take lore from different cultures across the United States and making this homogenous thing to be like, yes, Bigfoot exists. You see, everybody has a wild, hairy man. But some scholars think that that's just taking different stories and forcing them into the same mold. So you're taking a square peg into a round hole, and that isn't necessarily what each culture's story is about. Is a Bigfoot type thing. It could be, some people theorize that what they're talking about are other tribes, like threats. So it's a whole thing. Doesn't necessarily mean Bigfoot is real. But I will say, the idea that there are different cultures that are like, hey, there's some creepy, hairy, wild men in the woods. Maybe Bigfoot is out there. Or not Bigfoot, but maybe there's some bipedal creatures, ape-like men running around the forest. I mean, they would know. They would live in the forest. They'd be seeing that shit. I'm not in the forest that much. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's a dude out there. There have been thousands of Bigfoot sightings. A lot have been proven to be hoaxes. There's a really famous one, though, and you've probably seen the footage. It's the Patterson-Gimlin film, and it came out around 1967, and it's a blurry recording of what appears to be Bigfoot swinging his arms, walking through the woods. Now, the camera quality is terrible. Obviously, this is the 60s. A lot of people think it looks like somebody's just wearing a big furry suit. Other people have analyzed it, and they're like, humans cannot walk like that creature. That is definitely Bigfoot. Peterson and Gimlin have been accused of being broke at the time that they made it, like they were looking for a payday. But Peterson died, and he went to his grave saying, it is real. That was Bigfoot, and we caught him in 10p. And Gimlin, who is 90, still alive, but he also is like, nope, it's real. It is not a hoax. They deny it to the day. People have tried to say it's a hoax, but those people who have accused them of it are questionable themselves. So maybe they got Bigfoot on camera. I'm not totally convinced by the video, but I mean, we're here, we're walking around, us weird little naked humans. So if we're here, maybe there's fucking dude, ape-like dude in the woods. I could believe it. So Bigfoot is going up against the Hopkinsville Goblins. So, spoiler alert, the Hopkinsville Goblins, also known as the Kelly Green Man encounter, they're not goblins, they're aliens. Now, I asked ChatGPT to make me a giant list of cryptids so I could print them out and cut them up. And that bitch put fucking aliens in here. And I just started researching them because I went in blind and I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to keep them in here. But they're aliens. I don't know if that counts as a cryptid, but rest assured, I'll be having a stern talk with my ChatGPT later. Her name's Lyra. That's what she calls herself. And I'm going to put her in her robotic place. So Bigfoot's going up against some goblins, but they're aliens. It was August 21st, 1955. It's a warm summer night in Hopkinsville when the Sutton family arrived at the Hopkinsville, Kentucky police station claiming that their farm was under attack by little silver aliens. They had flown in on a flying saucer, and they were about 3 feet tall with pointy bat-like ears, wide set apart eyes. Their limbs were gangly, and they had little talons on their hands. And there was like 12 of them, and they were just running around the farm. They're peeking in the windows. They're just up to hijinks, just being nuisances. One of the Sutton family, there was like a bunch of adults, a bunch of kids. There's like a handful of them. They went out there, pow, shot one of the goblins, one of the aliens. Thing flew out of a tree, right? He's like, oh, yeah, I killed it. Hops right back up, this little 3-foot silver glowing alien goblin. And it's like the shotgun just bounced off of him. He's like, bitch, I'm still alive. Scared these people. Another guy went out to check on them. One of the goblins was up on the roof, grabbed his hair, and he was like, oh, fuck. So they left and they went to the police station. The police came the next day. They checked out the farm. They didn't see any sign of any aliens. No little men running around. So some people think that maybe the Suttons got really fucked up and they saw a great horned owl, which is native to the area, swooping around, and they got hysterical and they were fighting demons, but they were owls. But the Suttons, all of them went to their grave, or the ones that are still alive, saying it is not a hoax. So it's either take their word or just assume there's some really shell-shocked owls flying around that night. So we've got Bigfoot, we've got the Hopkinsville Goblins. Obviously Bigfoot wins, right? I mean, of course he does. It's really no contest. I do think the goblin story is really funny, though. A part of me wants to pick it because it's so stupid, but unfortunately, I think Bigfoot is just too much of a juggernaut to say no to. Now we have the Mongolian deathworm versus the Mothman. So the Mongolian deathworms live in the Gobi Desert in Asia. They are like 2 to 3 feet long worms. They're like red sausages, but huge. They're actually abhorrent looking. They have faces that are kind of like the sandworms in Dune. It's like a row of teeth. They're honestly, they're really gross. I was very excited about researching these, and because I thought they'd be like big fucking dune sandworms. No, they're just these dog-sized worms worming around. But if you get close to them, they will spit yellow corrosive acid on you, and one little drop of it kills you. Apparently, they love eating people, and they love eating livestock. And if you get acid on you, you're done. They also are like Pokemon. They have an electric shock feature. So you can summon electric shock and have your Mongolian deathworm fry somebody. They are really hard to track though because they burrow, right? So people are like, are these deathworms real? We never see them. And then other people are like, well, yeah. They live in the ground, stupid. The deathworms first appeared in Western culture in a book called On the Trail of the Ancient Man in 1926 by a man called Roy Chapman Andrews, who was touring the area where the deathworms were. Now, some people say that the story came from nomad Mongolian tribes who use it as a, you guessed it, cautionary tale against fucking around in the desert. This also has been said to be like Bigfoot, where maybe not necessarily this even originates from tribes, or if it does, it's being misinterpreted. So I couldn't really find a whole lot of information on the truth behind that. So believe that or not, I'm not an expert. But still, people claim they've seen the death worms. A lot of people assume that they're misidentifying things like legless lizards. They're not actually death worms. Scientists also say that the worm, even real worms, can't live in the Gobi Desert because it's too hot. So all the worm goop will dry up. I mean, we've all seen worms on a sad summer's day when they get stuck on the sidewalk. And just zoom out, pretend that that worm is 2 to 3 feet long and the sidewalk is the desert. So we've got the Mongolian death worms up against the Mothman. The Mothman, he's giant, 7 feet tall, humanoid creature. He's got a gigantic wingspan. He has big, glowing red eyes. He's been described as either having gray skin or like gray fur. And I'm going to say he has gray fur because I think that's cute. He's powerfully built, apparently. And I've seen enough drawings and heard enough descriptions of him, and I just know. I don't even have to look it up. There are some weird Mothman smut books out there, and I think you all need to seek Jesus. The Mothman originates in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. In 1966, 12 grave diggers saw what they think is the Mothman flying. And then he started showing up around the area the next couple of days. 2 men said that he was just standing outside of their car, giant wings. They were like, it sounds crazy, but it's true. He was there. And 8 other people said that they just saw this creature in the sky flying. And it's even rumored that maybe he stole a beloved family pet, which is not very nice, Mothman. Can't be stealing people's dogs. The hell? But the Mothman isn't malevolent. So I don't know what he would have done with that dog, but he doesn't eat people. He doesn't hurt people. He's more of a harbinger of doom. On December 15th, 1967, about a year after the Mothman first started appearing around Point Pleasant, the Silver Bridge collapsed. A bunch of holiday shoppers had been stuck on traffic on it, and the bridge, having been constructed for lighter cars, not for more modern, heavier cars, could not take the strain. One of the support beams, it was like a little thing, it broke. And the whole thing collapsed and it plunged a bunch of cars into the icy Ohio River. And unfortunately, 46 people died. Now, the Mothman wasn't necessarily seen at the bridge, but people had been making reports the week before, ramping up to the event of seeing the Mothman. So a lot of people started connecting the Mothman as a warning sign of incoming doom. There's been other pictures of him. There's a really famous one of him, apparently, at 9/11. I think it looks like a bird, but I remember this video went super viral. Another person in 2019 said that they saw him. And if this is the Mothman, it's the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen because his legs are like, woo. but it's probably more like a bird with a snake in its claws flying behind it. Okay. Now we've got the Mothman versus the Deathworms. And obviously the Mothman wins. Come on. I don't even need to make an argument for that. That then puts the Mothman versus Bigfoot. And this is a really hard one. This could go either way, I think. You know, they're both very solidly formed cryptids. They have really big backstories, a lot of lore behind them. You know, we have got Bigfoot, West Coast, kind of like the Tupac, and we've got the Mothman, East Coast, Biggie. So we do Biggie, Tupac, Mothman, Bigfoot. I'm going to have to give it to the Mothman. I like the idea that the Mothman is just a shy guy who's trying to help people, whereas Bigfoot's like a shy guy who's just shitting in the woods. He's not doing anything. Where Mothman is like, oh my God, something bad's going to happen, and nobody's listening to him. Somebody listen to him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have our final matchup. We've got the horrifying Wendigo versus the ridiculous Mothman. I think that both of these are fun. The Wendigo's terrifying. I really like the Wendigo. Objectively, the Wendigo is probably the most well-rounded cryptid, the best cryptid, whereas the Mothman is more fun. He's more like meme culture, meme humor. I think this is going to upset some people, and that's fine. Well, you guys can tell me in the comments before I pick, out of all of them, who you think is the best cryptid. Or you can throw out whatever cryptid you like the most that isn't on this list. Because I can make more brackets, don't get me wrong. I can fight more cryptids all day, every day. And that's something anybody would like. I can also do that. Throw me some cryptid suggestions. Tell me your favorite cryptids. Come together. Cryptid coming together with cryptids. All right, the winner is the Mothman. The Wendigo is so cool. His story is terrifying. It's gross. It's morbid. It's dark. And he should objectively be the winner. But as I said, this is subjective and for vibes only. I like the thought of a humanoid man covered in fur flying 100 miles per hour around, anxiously trying to warn people about tragedies, and nobody listens to him. That vibes with me. So the Mothman wins. All right. Well, thank you for joining me on this journey. I had a lot of fun researching these cryptids, and I would totally do this again. So if anybody has any cryptids they would like to see battle for my stupid entertainment, put it in the comments, and I'll make another one of these. I'll make 5 more of these. Okay. Happy Halloween. See you next time. Bye.